everyone. The person that I chose to focus on this week within the Fundamentalist Modernist controversy was J. Gresham Machen. So as we've all been reading, the Fundamentalist Modernist controversy was focused on a split within the main Protestant body in the 1920s. The split came about due to a widening gap between the country's conservative traditional believers in Christianity and those who were embracing a more liberal and modern approach to the Bible, the divinity of Christ, his miracles, the virgin birth, and other such fundamentals of evangelical Christianity. This widening gap between the two sides set the stage for some very memorable characters that defended and aimed criticism at the differing sides of both. So one of those characters was J. Gresham Machen. Machen became known as the leading representative and defender of Protestant fundamentalism through his scholarly career. Though he would later be known for his defense of the fundamentals of Christianity, the beginning of his life would never lead one to believe that this is the path his life would take. He grew up in an affluent home with an attorney for a father and a Victorian mother. And while studying in Germany, Machen was offered and accepted a teaching position from Princeton Seminary that began in 1906 and ended in 1929. And it was while he was at Princeton Seminary that he wrote two influential books that were called The Origin of Paul's Religion in 1921 and The Virgin Birth of Christ in 1930. These books placed him in the highest tier of New Testament scholarship during his time, and he also wrote an introductory grammar to New Testament Greek that is still used today, which I find beyond impressive. Machen was exactly the opposite of what had come to be associated with the label of fundamentalist, which was Southern, rural, and anti-intellectual. His social origins, education, and his lifelong membership in the Democratic Party made him seem as one of the least likely to become one of the leading defenders of fundamentalism. A great deal of Machen's influence came through another book of his that he wrote called Christianity and Liberalism, which was published in 1923. This book was widely read and reviewed throughout the US, Canada, and the UK. Through this book, many believed it was Machen who clearly defined the differences between theological progressives and theological conservatives, or traditionalists, within the main Protestant body of denominations. In this book, Machen argued that this liberalism that the traditionalists were fighting against was not simply a departure from traditional Christian values or traditional Christian theology. It was in itself a whole new religion, a whole new belief system that was in itself anti-intellectual. One of the most interesting things about Machen, besides that, in my opinion, was his belief that churches should be intolerant theologically, but not politically. He believed that the church's responsibility was to preach the gospel without getting caught up in politics, and when it came to political matters, that the course of civil liberty should be followed. While a stalwart and outspoken critic and foe of theological liberalism, he was at the same time an advocate for civil liberty and religious pluralism. This meant that Machen opposed prohibition, child labor laws, the prayer and reading of the Bible within public schools, and the creation and development of the Federal Department of Education. He believed that these policies and others like them infringed upon the civil liberties of those that did not identify as Protestant, and that these kind of policies enlarged and gave too much power to the federal government. So basically what we would consider a libertarian, he seemed to be that politically. And it's actually really fascinating if you have the time and you want to study more about Machen. The argument that he gives for why he believes that theologically being exclusive is actually the foundation for being politically inclusive is absolutely fascinating. And I enjoyed reading his logic so much. I felt like I learned a lot through his scholarship. But so J. Gresham Machen was one of the most influential characters of this time throughout the controversy. He led a lot of people through his scholarly criticism of modern liberalism, and he became an outstanding voice for for fundamentalism. I encourage everyone to further their own research of J. Gresham Machen. I think that he is a really fascinating character that deserves more notoriety, and I think that you'd really enjoy getting to know him a little bit better. But anyways, hope everyone's staying safe and everyone's doing well, and thank you for listening.